Hi everybody, and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. A quick warning before we begin, this is a very strong story that includes many types of abuse, so if that is something that you're not comfortable with, you might want to skip this story. Now, let's get started. This post is from the subreddit Relationships, and it's by user BrokenThrowaway9. I, 29 male, am married, 10 years, to a narcissistic BPD wife, 30 female, affecting the family, and I'm in a major dilemma. Where do I even start? My wife of 10 years has been displaying emotional abuse towards me and our oldest daughter for 10 years now. It used to be rare enough that it wouldn't impact us, but the past year has been dreadful. Our daughter is becoming a teenager and she isn't taking her crap anymore. I often have to get involved and stand up for my daughter to calm my wife down, but then I'm the bad guy. I'm depressed as F. I can't stand my wife anymore. I'm to the point now where the only reason why I'm in this marriage is because of the kids. I often have to lie to her to avoid confrontation, and what's worse is our fights. They are long, and I am criticized if I stand up for myself, and they are frequent, 4 times a week lately. So I just don't even try with that anymore. My opinion doesn't matter. I lie about how I feel, etc., etc. Sometimes she'll yell at me for stuff that needs to be done that she doesn't think needs to be done. For example, today there was a kitchen electric appliance in the sink. She put it there. She needs my help with something else, but I had to get the appliance out of the sink in case one of the kids turned the water on. She didn't like that, said it was stupid for paying attention to something and not her, and said that I don't know how to respect people. Forget about the safety of our children and possessions. That brings me to another point, her breaking our stuff during fights. When I did stand up to her, she would just start throwing stuff, anything, TV remotes, pictures, frames, dishes, etc. Over a year ago, she broke a 42-inch TV. She used to blame me for getting her that mad, but I retaliated and told her that I didn't throw it, it isn't my fault. Most of the fights between her and us, me and my daughter, are about us not helping out enough around the house. Forget about me having a full-time job 45 hours a week, being a part-time student, and studying to get promoted in the military. What sucks is that even if I do follow her lead to the T, I get yelled at because I took too long or I didn't have my priorities right. If I do stuff without her telling me to, it doesn't meet her standards, etc., etc. Her method and timing of arguments are so flawed. Today, she made me late for work just to argue with me. If this were a civilian job, I would get fired. When I do tell her that I have to leave to avoid being late, she usually says, "Your work is always more important than me." No, it's not. It's a job that provides for this family, and providing for this family is more important than your 7 a.m. argument. I feel like I'm the only one who cares about the family as a whole, not just my wife. My daughter always stays away from my wife as much as possible, but it is hard for her to do it because of all the family interaction. We are trying to teach her responsibility, so she has a few chores. When they don't get done, her mother abuses her, sometimes worse than she does me. This is where I step in. Our daughter's emotional health is going downhill. Her doctor said it's ADHD, but I know better. It's her lack of motivation. She needs to see a psychiatrist and get away from her mother. It only gets worse from here. Our youngest is starting to have daytime wedding accidents. I have concluded that they're related to the psychological stress that she is causing. Since he is a boy, I would find it unlikely that it's a UTI. Oh yeah, and I'm likely taking a civilian job and moving out of our home state by the end of the year. My wife plans to take the kids with me. As for the efforts to fix this, I've tried. I tried making her happy, being romantic, and never paying attention to anything but her, but it doesn't work. She knows that she has a problem, especially the throwing objects part, but she refuses to see a psychiatrist. I know she won't get fixed if she doesn't see one, so this is where I need your help. What power do I, a man, have over my wife to get me and the kids out of her abusive household? I do plan on divorcing her within the next year and a half, and I want to make every effort possible to get my kids out of this situation so that they can live a mentally healthy lifestyle. If you think there is no chance of me getting custody, let me know. Well, the first thing I'm going to say is that at least you are already starting to take steps to get your kids out of there, because that's the most important thing at this moment. Getting you and your kids away from her. Now, personally, I have no idea how the custody thing works over there, so there's nothing I can contribute on that point. However, here's what I would do if I was in your shoes. First thing would be to get as much undeniable proof as possible. Considering since she's apparently really good at gaslighting you, she might just say that your proof is absolutely a lie, so you need to make sure that that can't happen. Second would be to keep standing up for your kids and not let her abuse them. You can also make some proof out of that. Then, as soon as possible, as soon as you have some really good proof, you go to a lawyer and you call the police and report it. I would say that would be good enough ground for you to get a restraining order and maybe take the kids and move out to a temporary housing situation with a friend or a family member to get away from that environment. But like I said, I am not an expert on this point. I would just try to get you and your kids away from her as soon as possible and get started on those divorce proceedings. And what about you guys? What kind of advice would you give OP? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. Deleted says, do you have witnesses to her erratic behavior? If so, you could split from her and get sole custody of the kids, I'm sure. Even if not, I would say for you and your kids' sake, you remove the toxic element out of their lives. They'll be thankful for it in the end. Divorce may be a long and drawn-out process, but believe me, between a single dad versus a miserable dad and a horrifying mother, the single dad scenario will be like a utopia compared to what you're living right now. And Opie responds, my daughter just turned 13. I don't know if she would be a legal witness. On top of that, because of my depression, my children are more attached to her than me, especially since they think all of the fights are my fault. I don't know that my daughter would fight against her. These are the dilemmas I'm talking about. Idash says, yeah, don't stay together for the kids. The kids need to get away from her, and so do you. And Opie responds, I know that I'm doing it for more than just for the kids. I'm doing it for me too. I managed to put those I love before me. It's one of my greatest strengths and weaknesses, since it got me in this mess. Econoquist says, you need to tell her to get therapy or go with you to couples and family counseling, or it's over, for the sake of the kids. You can contact local domestic violence agencies for help. Also, I would document her behavior so you can point to specific examples. And Opie responds, we've tried marriage counseling 3 times. The second one told her that she needs to be seen by her own private psychiatrist. She didn't like this result and walked out. She flat out lied to the third counselor to hide her tactics. Well, the community gave OP some pretty decent advice, thanks to which OP had already tried to do apparently like counseling that didn't work. Now, OP has given us 4 updates. Some of them are short, like just checking in, and some of them are longer. So let's begin with the first one. 3 weeks after the original post. Last night, my wife threatened me with a butcher knife to make me leave the house. To cut to the chase, our son started running in fear and hit his head. I called the cops. I also had a partial video of her chasing me with the knife. The cops came and saw the video, along with all of the family members agreeing that my wife had a butcher knife in her hand and threatened to use it. She was booked for domestic violence. I, along with my son, have a protective order against her. My family and her family are calling us from several states away to mediate the situation. No one on her side wants to admit it's her fault. They're blaming me for it. On top of that, my daughter is mad at me and blames me for all of this. My son and daughter want me to drop the charges. My wife also has communicated that she wants to work on this together and that there is still a chance to save this relationship. On one hand, I believe this is just a bait and run plan on her part, hoping that I fall for it. Let the protective order expire and then she takes the kids and runs. On the other hand, she does sound sincere since she is admitting that she needs to see a shrink and she hasn't screwed our finances yet. OP's edit. For those of you wondering, I have talked to a lawyer. I do like him so far, but finances are tight. I will be likely getting a debt consolidation loan or filing for bankruptcy. Right now, I am getting in contact with free legal assistance programs, but I don't know what I qualify for. Also, the kid's reaction is the exact opposite of what I expected. I expected my daughter to support me since she has taken most of the abuse from her mother, but instead, she wants me to lift the order to make things go back to normal. My son, who is the golden child, has told me that he doesn't want to see his mom again because he is scared of her. I know he is young and doesn't know what he is saying, but that took me by surprise. Other than that, they are taking it well, and I will be getting their insurance to extend their therapy visits. Wow, that must have been horrifying for OP. Silver lining is, he got a protective order. So now, let's move on to the next update. 2 weeks after the first update. So I had a permanent protective order hearing this week. I show up with my lawyer and my soon-to-be ex-wife shows up with no representation. We show some of the videos I took showing abuse from her on myself and both kids. Her only defense was about how she has been attending therapy sessions, anger management classes, etc. It did look like she had better control over her self-discipline. The judge ruled in my favor, gave me custody of the children and sole access to the resident, extended the protective order to the max 2 years, and only gives her visitation with supervision. Contact can only be made regarding visitation and finances. The reason for finance is that we have co-signed on multiple credit lines. Before anyone asks, I can cover all of our co-credit lines but one. Since then, she has called me every day begging me to stop the protective order, which is a violation of the order itself. I mentioned this every time and she responds with every gaslighting line that you could think of. You're so cold, any reasonable person would fight for their wife, etc. I'm not going to report any of the violations until the final check clears in our joint checking account, and that's a rent payment. I had a heart-to-heart conversation with her and told her that I need therapy for possible PTSD caused by her actions. I even mentioned that I'm in the military. I'm supposed to get PTSD from being in the desert, not at home from my wife. She cries and admits that it is her fault, that she can never forgive herself for doing this to her kids and her husband. Shockingly, no threats of ending her life. I guess this is a good sign. She understands that her actions have a negative impact on others. That is the first time that she admits to it. She would usually say, "Deal with it and man up." She also claims that she has no memory of some of her episodes, like one of the videos shown in court. I believe that she is just in denial, but that's just my speculation. Anyway, there is no chance of us getting back together, and I have told her that divorce papers will be getting served on her soon. I'd like to thank Reddit for the support. I have a close co-worker who has been through something similar that I have been talking to as well. But every now and then, I have to validate my sanity and I reread the comments that you all sent my way. Well, at this point, we know that OP is definitely not getting back together with his wife. So now let's move on with the third update to see what happened next. 2 weeks after the second update. The past 2 weeks have been an emotional roller coaster for me. My soon-to-be ex-wife, who I have a protective and restraining order against, is not in good condition. Initially, after I won the 2-year hearing, she was slowly getting onto her feet. Her father came down and talked some sense into her. She still had her job and managed to get a place to stay. Her finances were in perfect order, which is a good thing. She had a roof, a job, transportation, and enough money for food and child support. All seemed to be going well. And then her dad left. She hasn't made a single rational choice since. She pissed off her roommates, especially after she was arrested again. More on that later. They kicked her out. As of right now, I think she is living in a motel. What's worse is what happened last week. She had court at around noon for the assault charges and protective order violations. I was called to witness, so that day she calls me up at 8:30 a.m. and tells me that she is going to swallow a bottle of pills. She is very persistent and sounded quite convincing. I told her not to, called the hotline, and they recommended that I call 911. I did, and the police show up at her door to make sure she is okay. She answers, claims that she has done no such thing and that I was calling the cops in an attempt to make her late for court. What the F? So basically, she used the life-ending threat as bait to get me to call the cops on her before her court time. Luckily, there are no charges for contempt. After the trial, they told her that she is on probation. Then, of all things, she shows up at my house that night, pounding on the door so that she can say goodbye to the kids before she ends herself. Yeah, not happening. I call the cops again. Then she flees before they show up. She got picked up the day after and sent to jail. That's why her roommates kicked her out. That was twice in 2 days that the cops showed up. She has since threatened to end her life many more times. I don't take her threats seriously anymore, since it might be bait like last time. I am seeing a therapist now, and he reassures me that I need to stand my ground and that I cannot, under any circumstance, let her back in. I have no intentions of letting her back in, ever for that matter. I've since blocked her number and blocked her on all social media. Another thing that I've found interesting is that my therapist said that in his 30 years of experience, this case takes the cake. I don't know what my plan is from here, but I plan on having recorded conversations with her and will likely move to another house or apartment when my lease expires in 3 months. Wow, this so far has been a roller coaster, so I think it's time we move on to the final update to see how this story ends. 6 months after the last update. So, a quick recap for those of you that don't want to read the previous posts. About a year ago, I uncovered the truth about my wife. I knew that she had a temper that would get into some uncontrollable rages, but the full extent was never known to me. She also claimed she was life-ending, which I know now was a method of hers to control me. I started to notice that the children would come out of their rooms or come back inside when I got home from work. I asked my daughter for more details, and she explained that her mother's rages were terrible, very emotionally and physically violent. Both children were having psychological problems such as ADD in my daughter and daytime wedding in my son. I finally got a few recordings of her abusing our children. In one argument, she came at me with a knife. I got this recorded and called the cops. She was arrested, I got a restraining order against her, and the rest is history. She's pleaded guilty to misdemeanor assault and several counts of restraining order violations since. All jail time is suspended sentences. I've been granted custody. Looking back at it, wow, how much I've changed in the past year. And I can't believe how stupid my soon-to-be ex-wife really is. I always saw her as intelligent and thoughtful, but now I know that she is very stupid and incapable of seeing other people's perspectives. She constantly sends me emails that are court gold, as my attorney says, although we have been doing quite well settling many things outside of court. She acts like a true narcissist. She is so good at creating that false image, but I'm always one step ahead of the game and have the evidence to exploit her faults. Thank you, books, documentaries, and therapy. Most of the issues are how she communicates with me and talks to the kids. She claims that I'm holding her back from her visitations right by, wait for it, asking what times she wants to visit them. She says that this is annoying and that she shouldn't have to repeat herself. She will then say, well, back on X date I sent an email, so just go back and check that. If you're not there at the time that I requested, I'm telling the judge that you're not compliant. And I just respond by telling her that if she really cares about the children, then she would have no problem repeating the times she wants to see them at. The funny thing is when I go back to check my emails on that day, there are 6 lengthy emails, all criticism and her venting. Then, in the third email and second paragraph, she mentions the time for her next request. So I have since put forth some guidelines, one of them telling her to be short and to the point for emails regarding visitation. Again, she didn't like that. Anyway, my kids are doing great. Both kids are in therapy, and my daughter has expressed her emotions quite well since this all went down, mostly positive on my side. She wants nothing to do with her mother and doesn't participate in the visitation. My son has to go, being younger and all. When he does go, she tries to alienate him from me. Unfortunately, I got denied supervised visitation for him with his mother. This has caused some problems with him at home, but I'm working with his therapist to get these fixed. He has improved a lot over the past month. Finally, I've been doing great. I have a lot more self-confidence. My finances aren't in the best of shape, but I'll be fine. I'm still working on my depression, but I'm feeling better every day. I have a lot more positive thoughts and I know how to handle it. I've looked back at how bad it was and wondered what would have happened if I didn't stand up for myself and the children. I honestly can't think of many good things. I'm so happy for me and my children that we got out, and I have faith that it can only get better. Thanks, Reddit. P.S. To any of you that may be going through what I did, please get proof, preferably video, then talk to a lawyer. Most of them will give you a brief hour for free. Review your state or country laws to see what is illegal in terms of surveillance. How to initiate a restraining and protective order. Don't let the abuser intimidate you. They have amazing persuasive skills. Regardless, the video proof will be all you need to take them down. And if they falsely accuse you of doing things, they will probably be stupid enough to tell you what they plan on doing. Record that crap too. The courts and police need to know this stuff when dealing with these types of people, and it will be so far-fetched that the only testimony that courts will take seriously is video and audio. And most important, don't forget about yourself. You need to be persistent. You need a can-do attitude. It seems helpless at first. I know, I've been there. Being one who was a victim of an abusive relationship sucks, but don't give up. The grass is greener on the other side. Take it from a fellow victim. You can get through this. Well, OP, I'm gonna say this is a positive ending. I don't know if it's particularly happy considering everything you and your children went through, but it's definitely a good thing that this is over for you and that you can now focus on you and your kids to get better. So thank you for sharing, OP, and all the best in the future. Now let's finish the video on a lighter note with a really quick mood booster. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliance, and it's by user Kita's Mom 2022. Arrogant VP gets schooled. Years ago, I worked as the director of communications for an IT company. One of my jobs was to finalize assessment reports for companies we were bidding on. This one particular assessment was headed by our brand new VP. She simply did not understand the way people in Texas, where the prospective client was located, spoke. I, having lived in Texas for 20 years and knowing the board members we were dealing with, changed some of the wording on the final report to make it more client-centric. By the way, we got the contract. When the VP found out, she had a hissy fit. She screamed at me that I should never again change anything she wrote. I said fine. Well, several weeks went by and a letter came across my desk addressed to a particular corporate president to set up a go-see appointment. The letter was from this VP and the president's name was wrong. Needless to say, I let the letter go through exactly as written. For some reason, the VP didn't get the meeting. I overheard her saying something about it to a colleague and sweetly said that maybe that was because she sent the letter to the wrong person. When she asked why I let it go through, I pointed out that I was not allowed to change her words. She actually conceded defeat, apologized for her previous outburst, and said she would never second-guess me again. We are good friends to this day. Wow, malicious compliance, growth, and a friendship. Couldn't get any better. Thanks for sharing, OP. And it's that time that we've reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. I really did enjoy reading them to you. So if you did, then don't be shy and go ahead and give the video a like. And don't forget to subscribe or even share this video with people that you might think will enjoy my storytelling. Also, if you have the time, go down to the video description and check out all the links I have for you, from our Discord community to my channel merch. And finally, I'd like to say thank you for watching. It really means a lot to me that you enjoy my videos. And having said all that, I'll see you guys in the next video.